April the 20th, 2021. Guys, you're looking at a picture from a video that I'm going to link you to. I'm not going to show you the entire video. I want you to go there and look at it for yourself. The guy's done a lot of hard work. And his YouTube channel is called Hangman 1128. Hangman 1128. But I'll put a link in the description, but that's it. And it's very interesting because what we're looking at is a fallen tree. And at the very top of the image, I know it doesn't show it very well, but you can see the base of another pine tree that has grown straight up from there. But in the video, which has some biblical implications from Hangman 1128, he mentions Ezekiel 31, and Ezekiel is one of my favorite prophets in the Old Testament. I've mentioned Ezekiel 13 and others many times for over 12 years now just here. But in Ezekiel 31, God is sending a message to Pharaoh. And if you think about the line of Pharaoh, you're talking about ancient kings that go all the way back to the Sumerian king line, which goes to the beginning of time as we know it, as far as our history. And a lot of people don't understand that there were two floods, but even in the King James Bible, there was a great flood before the flood of Noah. And we are actually in that second earth age, dealing with a third earth age that's going to be coming when Christ sets his foot down on this earth, 1,000-year millennium. But the first flood, there was no survivors, not even birds, not even animals. That's going to be a different video. Second flood, you had survivors. You had Noah and the people that boarded his ark. And they were talking about the pure pedigree of the Adamic bloodline. But in Ezekiel 31, God is sending a message to Pharaoh, which is of an ancient king line and of ancient knowledge, possibly alien. But God uses metaphors that we can understand, and to me, Ezekiel 31 was not as much about us understanding it as Pharaoh understanding the implications of what he had done. And I'm not even sure Ezekiel understood the full implications of the message. He was the messenger in this case. Now, God talks about giant trees. He's talking about the Assyrian, and it's a message to Pharaoh. And in the implications of the message, he talks about a giant tree, the largest tree ever, and it even overshadowed the gigantic, massive cedars of Lebanon. And when you read Ezekiel 31, you've got to read it in context. In other words, it's obvious that he's talking about Satan and how Satan grew up wiser and smarter than the other beings that were with God, messengers. Angel is just a word for messenger, but his counsel. And Satan thought, as he grew and wiser and beautiful as God made him, that he was above everyone, and he wanted to rise into heaven and rule it. And Ezekiel 31 is about this giant tree, and he compares it to Satan. And he's talking about, remind Pharaoh about the Assyrian and what I did and what happened and how that giant tree fell. How lofty it was that it shaded nations, that all the birds of the earth could nest in the boughs of the tree. Giant trees that make the sequoias look very small, which you got, I think, the General Grant redwood is one of the largest tree, or the largest tree on earth by volume. It's 102 foot around the base of it. It's not the tallest, but thick enough to be the greatest tree on earth. But anyway, in Ezekiel 31, guys, go read it. But if you read it without the full understanding, I think you will miss some of the implication, because Again, it's obvious if you read it that it's a message to Pharaoh warning him about what happened to these other people that rose and thought they were gods, okay, including Satan. But he's using a metaphor that they would understand. And these trees that overtowered everything, that were bigger than skyscrapers, did they exist? Well, it seems odd that God would use something that didn't exist in any of his teachings or any of his warnings. And so when you look at the, again, you look over into Northern California, those are magnificent trees. You can drive through the bottom of some of them. And, but there were trees much older than that, because the first Earth age that was destroyed, and just bear with me, was destroyed, and nothing survived, was a long time ago. It wasn't part of Genesis. Genesis, in the first chapter, it says the earth became, if you understand the Hebrew, became void. And that was because of the first great flood. Now, in these great trees, they can petrify. And they can petrify from being covered in mud, or in a river and covered in sand, or from volcanic ash, and it turns the wood to rock. And here in central Mississippi, on a river called the Strong River that we grew up canoeing every weekend we could as kids, and camping on the sandbars, you would find small pieces from 6 inches to maybe a foot, 2 or 3 inches thick, of this petrified wood. It looked like a piece of wood, but it was hard. It was, petrified wood. In Arizona, you've got places that say they have the largest petrified tree, and that's all over the world. But these giant remnants, believe it or not, are all over the planet. And again, I'm not going to show you much of any of the video. I'm going to show you a couple still shots and some of the other ones that I got, because I want you to go there and watch it. But it had so much implication to me that I wanted to share it. And Hangman in 1128 says to share his information. He wants everybody to understand it, because he, again, approaches it with a biblical context. But going back to, one more time, Ezekiel 31, look at it as a message to ancient kings that had ancient knowledge before Moses, okay? Before then. But the message was not for the messenger, but it was for these ancient kings that knew what had happened in history. Now, they say petrified wood is from 500,000 to 600,000 years old to over 1 million years, and even more than that. This picture that you're looking at is from the video from Hangman 1128, and it's from South Dakota. Now, you can see where this tree has fallen and another tree has grown up from it. But notice in the center, this white substance, and that is quartz, white quartz rock. And here in the South, we had some of the largest pine trees ever. And you got pine lighter stumps that dynamite is made from. We still have those here, and as the tree ages, it's that core of the tree, the sap. And if you go back to a lot of other information as far as geology, the sap of a tree would harden, and it could contain many different things, mosquitoes, bugs, insects, whatever, and they were preserved. But in this image here, this white substance is white quartz that many of us have seen. I climbed a tower of rock in Colorado between Golden and Denver, Colorado. Coming out of Denver, going into Boulder, coming down into Boulder on that road. But we climbed a large mountain, and on the top was nothing but this white quartz crystal, big rocks, enough you could have built a house in this flat area. But guys, this isn't wood. This is petrified wood that you're looking at. And on the outer edges here, you can see how it is grayed over time and turned gray. And in the desert, when you see this on the stones, it's called desert patina. But here, the rock will crack This petrified, just like you will have dry wood that dries and cracks, it will do the same thing. But what is interesting about this, and they've seen it in all over the world, is quartz. That nectar, that sap that runs up through the center that we call pine heart lighter here, was turned to white quartz rock. Now, the redder areas that you can obviously tell was wood, looks like redwood or cedar, are newer breaks, maybe 100,000 years old, maybe much less than that. But the outer edges makes it look just like rock, except this is one of the best pictures I've ever seen, and I'm going to show you a few more that are amazing, of petrified wood, still in a state that you can tell, obviously, look at this on the top right here, that this is wood. But it's not, and it is petrified wood. Now, let's look at a couple of other pictures. And guys, when you see his video, it's going to remind you of several things, but you're looking at Devil's Tower out in Wyoming, and it's massive, but the base of it and the way that it is formed looks like a massive tree stump. Just think about what I'm saying. And many of you, most everybody that on the first impression has thought that. And it's cut off very cleanly at the top. Now, was that did that happen through a massive movement of ancient ice fields and glaciers that would trim it that close? We don't know that. But there's evidence that the trees that existed in ancient time in the first Earth Age were this size, and that's what the message in Ezekiel 31 is. But let's go and look at some of a couple of still images that are in Hangman 1128's video. Now, if you look across the northwest of this country, from the west to the northwest, from Arizona all the way up into Washington, Oregon, California, there's evidence of petrified trees that are very large. Here's one in the northwest. Check it out. It's on the edge of a plateau, but it looks like a regular tree, but it's not. It is a petrified tree. And it's not that large, but it's as large as anything growing now. You look at General Sherman out in California. The large redwood is 102 foot at the base. And this is comparing it to that. But I want to show you a couple of images again from the video I'm going to link to. And in that video, he walks through this cut between what appears to be rock. But notice that it's laying horizontal. And notice the breaks in the cuts where it's newer than the outside edges that are aged by no telling really how many thousands or millions of years. But in the center where some of the newer cuts and drops have fell off, you can see the redder interior. And it's much larger than it looks. You can see a pine tree here. But when the author of the video walks through this passage, he continues down to the right, and you start seeing other things. And it's so impressive and so kind of eye-opening that I wanted to share it with you. And we back out from that image. Again, this is the passage or the path that was walked through. And it appears to be a break in this section. But guys, this is petrified wood. They don't really talk about it. Anything that's ancient and biblical is really suppressed. But this is on the side of a mountain. This is again in South Dakota. And I'm going to link you to the video where you can see the entire thing. But look at the sections of this and tell me that we've been told the truth about the ancient world. And a lot of times in a petrified piece of wood, guys, it may be just the core that's left, and the outer edges of the bark had decayed or whatever. But this is a tree. Look at some of the other images. Again, from the same video, but let me say this. We have the Mississippi National Petrified Forest here in central Mississippi, and you have those all over the world, but the trees are not like this. This is petrified. Check this out. They're saying it's rock, but it's not. You can see these edges here, And again, the rock does not form horizontal. And some people will say, well, it was a great cataclysm. Guys, this is petrified wood. Look at the size of it. You can see a post here with 2x4s. And then he's going to take a closer look. And again, the video is much more amazing than this. I just wanted to perk your interest enough to where you will go check it out. And this is one of the most impressive of all. As he came through the cut that you saw in the middle of the tree there, this was on the other end as he went further to the right. Look at this, guys. You can see that it takes very little imagination, let me put it that way, to see that this is petrified wood. And where their edges are newer, where rock has fallen off or petrified wood has fallen off, you can still see the red color, almost like it was cut with a saw. But look at the size of this compared to some of the bigger trees that we see there. And there are other images where he gets a close-up of this, and it looks like the wood had just peeled the bark and was ready to cut, but it's rock. And he talks about this eventually forming into limestone. Now, this is just a few images. He's got the full video on the channel that I'm going to link you to. And by the way, there's another YouTube channel called Logic Before Authority. And he actually had an interview with this fella. And that's how I found it. I noticed comments from some of the other folks that watch our channel were on Logic Before Authority's channel. But the video is at, again, Hangman 1128. Guys, the pictures that he shows you in the video makes it 10 times clearer than what I'm telling you and showing you if you need that much clarity. But these are the trees that God was referring to as an example of no matter how great and mighty that you rise up above the other trees, the cedars of Lebanon, etc., that you can be brought back down. Now, he wasn't attacking the trees, he was attacking the ancient kings and rulers. But, guys, this is not rock. Look at this. It looks like for example, I have 2 stacks of firewood here. One is 3 or 4 years old, and it's very gray, and it looks just like this. The newer one is very red, and it looks just like this, especially on the ends. This is petrified wood. It's ancient, and it's giant, and it's eye-opening. Guys, we're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.